Alright, just going to go over one more time. It's a scripted podcast, and I'll be going over why we need to do more for the environment.
A script? I assumed we'd have been researching our points of view.
Sorry to disappoint you, but the script is just so it's easier. I've researched my argument too, but that was only for the written bits of my work.
But wouldn't it be useful to state our real views on this?
Information-wise, yeah, but I'm just getting this project out of the way. I kind of like to stick to the script. You'll be making the point that maybe we shouldn't be so considerate since we need to self-preserve. Maybe you don't agree with it, because I certainly don't, but it's all for the podcast.
Well, actually, if it helps, I do agree with that.
I guess that helps in some way then. Let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the Greenhouse Project. This is the first episode of a podcast where we'll discuss the effects of modern day environmental problems and whether or not we as humans should be doing more for our planet. During this episode, my friend will vouch for deforestation, whilst I'll say my piece about how we could cut down on it. No pun intended.
Personally, I think deforestation is pretty important. Why don't you make your points first?
Well, I'd like to bring up the obvious. Deforestation destroys a majority of animal habitats, making it a challenge for wildlife to reside anywhere else. It's also an eyesore to many people.
Hold on. Eyesore. That's why deforestation is bad. I feel like that can't be considered important.
Look, I know it's not too important, but can you just keep on script? I'll cut all this out and edit.
Sure, but don't you think the script is a little weak?
It doesn't really matter. This is just for a quick and easy podcast. The script just has to be good enough, which it is, so please follow it. It's also an eyesore to many people, especially to those of less fortunate housing situations. Not only living in a poorer area, being surrounded by waste too is a situation I'm sure nobody wants. Would you like to make a few points?
Of course. I suppose we'd be cutting down dead trees, so it'd probably reduce the spread of disease to other trees.
Well, that is a good point. However, a lot less trees have succumbed to disease in comparison to the number of trees cut down.
No offence, but this script is just awful.
Yeah, you're right. The script is too limiting, and I guess making some valid points could make it more interesting. I'll just cut out everything we've said.
Should we get our notes out?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Do you want to start?
Sure. I'd like to begin with saying that deforestation makes up 27% of global forest loss. It also contributes to 15% of the human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. And these points alone should discourage deforestation.
I see your point, but what about all the benefits of it? We're able to agriculturally expand because we have the space. Living areas might not be as overcrowded since we've been building more houses. So why do those specific statistics matter? Why is a meager 15% such a big deal compared to the other 85% of contributions? You're ignoring the fact that wildfires contribute massively to those forest loss. So why don't we focus on those instead?
Okay, well, you're right about wildfires. But what you clearly aren't aware of is that deforestation has much more of a drastic impact than wildfires. And sure, maybe 15% doesn't seem very important when you think about the other human-caused gas emissions. But what does matter is when you consider that every car in the world contributes to about 15% of gas emissions too. For about a third of our emissions to be caused by just deforestation and cars, it's a pretty significant number.
Alright, that's not a bad argument, but you're forgetting what you said about the diseased trees. Sure, you're right, the more trees are cut down than trees that die of disease. But why do you think that is?
I'm not sure, but my guess is that most tree-specific diseases are less likely to kill them.
Is that so? Or is it because we've been cutting down diseased trees? Don't you think that cutting these trees down is the reason that not many of them are dying with diseases, with up to 90% mortality rates? Maybe deforestation isn't the best, but I'd rather utilise resources from dying trees than leave them to rot.
could I have a minute?
What? Because your arguments aren't good?
I need to go over my points. You can have a minute too, if you'd like.
Why do we care so much all of a sudden about this?
It's a good question, but you're right about it being an important topic, though.
At the very least, it needs to be. You ready to go again? I'd like to circle back to deforestation. While you might be right that it shouldn't be carried out so much, I think it's necessary for us to survive. It gives us a surplus of materials that will, of course, benefit our daily lives. Things as simple as paper wouldn't be as easy to obtain without deforestation, and nor would the desk we're sat at right now.
I'm well aware that deforestation grants us resources, which I can't deny is a good thing, but we cut down so many trees per year that soon we'll end up running out. And then what? We're forced to endlessly recycle without the ability to effectively keep gaining resources.
I think it's clear that one day we'll run out of resources. But however, that probably won't happen for at least a few hundred years.
It could take a while, but at the rate we're destroying the planet, I can't see us lasting even more than 50 years. Do you know how many trees are cut down annually?
I can assume it's quite a lot. Enlighten me.
Over 15 billion trees. What's even worse is that only 5 billion are planted in their place. You're telling me that losing 10 billion trees a year is necessary for us?
It sort of is, unfortunately.
That's 42 million trees per day. Think about every forest you see, every long stretch of greenery, and multiply it by hundreds of thousands of times. You can't tell me that we need all these forests just to be leveled every single day?
Yeah, that's true. I think deforestation is still necessary though, but maybe not to the extent we're taking it. I still think landfill is necessary though.
Oh, alright. Again, I only half agree with that.
Could I ask why?
Sure. Oh, first of all, there are a lot of chemicals that seep into the soil and sea. One of these chemicals being a toxic liquid called leachate.
What's leachate?
It's a substance formed when rainwater filters through landfill. In short, the water picks up chemicals and contaminates the land.
Right, but these landfill sites are then covered with clay when they're completed. Then with dirt, so plants can grow on top. So tell me how this isn't eco-friendly.
Mainly because there are near enough 48,000 landfills taking waste every day. I mean, you're right about the completed landfills having plants on top, but the waste remains underneath.
I think it's pretty clear that the big piles of waste aren't too good for the planet. But you have to admit, we're utilising them very well.
How?
We have the technology to use the methane produced by landfills to instead produce energy. It's also the only option we have in terms of disposing non-reusable waste. It's a lot more ideal to not have landfills at all. But I think you're being a little optimistic about this all. You see, it's obvious that we'd rather not have these problems, but we're at the point where we can't just undo them. Minimising the damage is all we can do. Yes, it's expensive, and no, it's not ideal, but what else can we do?
We can do everything. I have one more point I'd like you to try and defend.
Which is?
Well, I want you to tell me what's so justifiable about poaching.
Make your point.
Poaching is done for nothing except the benefit of the rich and greedy. These animals are dying. For what? An extra zero in someone's bank account. All these rhino horns come at a cost that is more than just money. Ecosystems are terrorised by our vehicles, our weapons, our gluttony, just because some of us have a knack for seeing animals die. And think about the food chain. Predators will have nothing to eat if we're hunting all their prey.
Is that all?
I'm far from done. Poaching doesn't just kill these animals. In some cases, if they survive, they are scarred for life.
How so?
Could you imagine your parents dying in front of you or having a limb cut off brutally?
That's a little morbid.
That's the point. Nobody's going to learn if they don't imagine themselves in a situation like this, because nobody cares until it happens to them. Poaching is never going to affect just one singular thing. The environment is falling along with its residents.
You know, now that I think about it, I think we're being a little harsh on the environment.
That's an understatement. At this rate, we aren't making it to the next century, especially with the people leading the most powerful countries on Earth.
Yeah, they care about money and power more than anything.
Which isn't exactly surprising. Of course the environment's going to be in the back of their minds if personal gain is overshadowing it. So, to conclude the only episode, listeners, we personally don't think the environment is focused upon enough. Now, there are other problems our society has, but how will those problems exist if there's no place to call home?